Hello students, let us move on to next chapter, that is data protection. So in earlier days, uh, that means around at 1980s, there were a number of adoptions for computers, mainly for the business processes. Okay, so it generally led to growth of new applications and databases, and later, due to this increasing demand for storage capacity and performance, at that time the data was stored on the single large expensive disk drives. Okay, we also it was also called as single large expensive drive or SLED. Okay, but this kind of use of single disks did not meet the required performance levels. So because of that, they were capable of serving only limited number of input output applications. So later, nowadays, as we all know, data centers nowadays has hundreds of disk drives in their storage infrastructure. Disk drives are usually susceptible to failures due to mechanical wear and tear and due to the environmental factors, which results in data loss. So due to this, the great number of disk drives in the storage array had greater probability of disk failures in the array. So this that means that the disk drive in this particular arrays is likely to fail at least once in uh, about 8,000 hours. Okay, if you consider hundreds of disk drives, it will the probability if they are going to calculate it and if they get the result, that means that the disk array may fail at least once in 8,000 hours. Okay. So that's why they went for the technology called RAID technology. RAID is an enabling technology that leverages multiple drives as a part of set that provides data protection against these failures. So mainly this RAID protection or RAID enabling technology was used in multiple drives provide the data protection against the drive failures. So it also improved the performance of the system, storage system, and if some RAID array fails, you can access the data from other disk drives also. So here in 1987, uh, the persons like Patterson, Gibson, and Katz at the University of California, they published a paper titled called A Case for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disk, also called as RAID. Okay, that you know the dates when it was published. Okay, it is in 1987 itself. So actually, this RAID uses small capacity inexpensive disk drives as an alternative to large capacity drives common on mainframe computers. So in earlier days, large capacity disk drives were used, or we call it as single large expensive drives. Okay, but nowadays it is very inexpensive disk drives we are going to use. So we call it as RAID, stands for redundant array of inexpensive disks. Okay, okay. So it is an alternative to large capacity drives that were used in mainframe computers. So later, RAID has been redefined to refer to independent disks to reflect advances in storage technology. So this RAID technology has got many uses. We can explain this particular RAID technology in detail. It has got RAID levels, different types of RAID implementations, and also their benefits will be studied in this particular topic. RAID implementations methods. So let us see how we can implement this RAID. RAID implementation has mainly two methods. One is hardware RAID implementation and software RAID implementations. So if you go for hardware RAID implementation, you have to have a RAID controller that has to be installed between the host or sometimes on the array itself. Okay, there are two possibilities. That is, RAID controller can be either on the host itself Or another method is another kind is you have controller can be implemented on the array itself. Okay, that is in case of hardware RAID. Another one you have, that is software RAID. So software RAID uses host based software to provide RAID functionalities. Host based software means host is in the host you are going to have the software that provides the RAID functionalities. Okay, so that is what are the two methods of RAID implementation. So let us go for hardware RAID. So in hardware RAID implementation, you, as I said, there is a specialized hardware controller which is going to be implemented either on the host or on the array. So you will be having a controller card. It is also called as controller card RAID. It's a host-based hardware RAID implementation in which a specialized RAID controller is installed in the host and disk drives are connected to it. So you have to know that this controller card is being implemented or installed in the uh, host itself. Okay, and to the host you are going to connect the disk drives. And manufacturers also integrate RAID controllers on the motherboards also. So a host-based RAID controller is actually a not efficient solution in data center environment with large number of hosts. So when you are having a number of hosts that is being connected to the array, then this method of implementation is not recommended actually. Okay, that is your this in this particular method actually what you are going to do is there will be a controller card which is going to be implemented in the host itself. But suppose hosts are more, you cannot we are not going to recommend this for implementing the RAID. Okay. So there is another method where the external RAID controller is, you have. So where the external RAID controller is an array based hardware RAID. So it acts as an interface between the host and the disk. This is another kind of implementation, that is external RAID controller. So external RAID controller means here the RAID controller is not present on the host. We are going to install this RAID controller outside the host. Okay. So the external RAID controller is an array based hardware RAID and it is actually acting as an interface between the host and the disk. It implements storage volumes to the host and host manages these volumes as physical drives. So you can see the diagram in the next slide for components of RAID array. Let us see what are the functions of RAID controller. So as you can see in this diagram, there are components of RAID and here it has a host, RAID controller and it is also connected to the RAID array. So here actually you can see the uh, host. So host has been connected to the RAID controller, but RAID controller is external to the host. As you can see in this diagram, host is host is being connected to the RAID controller, but this RAID controller is not installed inside host. Okay, this RAID controller is completely external to the host. Okay, and this RAID controller is further connected to the RAID hard disks. Okay, so in the hard disk you can see actual existing physical array. So using this physical array of disks you can create the logical array. As and when you are required you can create the logical array. So here let us see what are the key functions of RAID controller. So it is this particular thing. What are the functions of RAID controller? Okay. So it is used for management and control of disk aggregation. So disk aggregation means it is concatenation of the disks. So sometimes uh, when you need larger capacity, when you want to create larger capacity of logical arrays, then you may go for disk aggregations. Okay, so this disk aggregation is done by RAID controller. Okay. And also translation of input output requests between the logical disks and the physical disks also is done by this RAID controller. Okay, and next is data regeneration. in the event of disk failures are also done by rate controller. So suppose sometimes due to some environmental issues or some kind of you can say earthquakes, if it happens. So due to that, during that time, some disks may be lost, completely lost in that. Okay, so how you can regenerate those data which is being lost? So you need some extra disk that has to be uh, done in case of RAID implementations. Okay, extra disk you should have, and using that disk you can but before that you should have a RAID controller to access the data which was installed or which is present in the already existing disk. Okay, so here data regenerations can be done in the event of disk failures, but to do the data regeneration, you need RAID controller. So let us see what is a software RAID. Software RAID uses host-based software to provide RAID functionalities. So here, mainly the software RAID is being implemented on the host itself. So this host actually has some operating system running on that. So this software RAID has to be implemented or installed in the operating system as well. Okay, and it does not provide any hardware controller to manage the RAID array. Okay, as you have seen in the hardware RAID, there was a separate dedicated RAID controller to manage all the RAID arrays. But here, that functionality is not provided in the software RAID because only software is being installed on the operating system, but there is no dedicated hardware control. Hardware component is not present here. Okay, only software RAID. So, what are the advantages when you're comparing it to the hardware RAID? When you say hardware RAID, it has to have a hardware control. Is it RAID controller? When you need RAID implementation, you need a RAID controller there. It is a hardware unit, so it costs is more. Compared to that, if you are installing only a software, it costs you very less, and also it is very simple to install this kind of software RAID. But there are many limitations when you say about a software RAID. What are the limitations? The performance issues. Here, the software RAID affects overall system performance. Due to this, the additional CPU cycles are required to perform RAID calculations. So everything has to be done through the software itself. So it affects complete system as well, because system, when you are saying a host, when you are saying it includes many software. So this software RAID, when it is being implemented on the system, it affects overall system performance. And also supported features. Software RAID does not support all the RAID levels. So you have we'll be going to study different kinds of RAID levels in the coming chapter. Maybe RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 3, RAID 4, RAID 5, RAID 6 we are going to study. So all these RAID levels are not being supported in this case. And also operating system compatibility. Here, software RAID is tied to the host operating system. Hence, upgrades to software RAID or to the operating system should be validated for compatibility. So this leads to inflexibility in data processing environment. So your operating, so sometimes users may need to install a different OS. So that time this RAID which is being implemented already in the existing operating system, that also has to be compatible with the new operating system we are going to install. So this compatibility issues will be there when you are using the software RAID. So there are different RAID techniques. So there are mainly three RAID techniques which you are going to study here. That is stripping, mirroring, and parity technique. Okay, so let us see these three topics in the next slides in detail.